Many people confuse project finance with corporate finance. They are two different things and they're not the same. In this video, we'll get to understand project finance in detail. My name is Promise. I'm the lead consultant with BFI Insights. Let's imagine that you're an investor and you have this idea of building a power plant, an airport, or a highway. These are basically capital-intensive projects that require lots of funding to be able to build. Most times, individuals don't embark in this kind of projects. Mostly, we see governments that build this kind of projects. But the question is, how can an investor build this kind of project? The answer is that the investor can build this kind of project through project finance. So the question is, what is project finance? Project finance is a specialized form of financing used to finance long-term infrastructure projects or industrial projects. Please note, project finance is quite different from financing projects because you can finance a project through different ways. You can finance a project using public sector debt. You can finance a project using government borrowings. You can as well finance a project using corporate loans. This is quite different from project finance. Now let's examine the features of project finance. The first one you're going to be looking at is special purpose vehicle or special purpose entity. Project finance involves the creation of a separate entity that will own and operate the project. What this means that the special purpose vehicle, which is also known as SPV, is going to be the one that will operate the project and as well own the project. So the investors, which is also known as sponsors, will invest into the project, and as well the SPV will be able to borrow money from lenders, which means that the SPV has the obligation to pay back the loan it borrowed from the lenders. The next one is that project finance involves high leverage. And what does that mean? That means that project finance involves high debt. Most project finance involves 70% debt and 30% equity. Sometimes you can see as high as 80% debt and 20% equity. That means that the lenders are providing 80% of the project cost, while the equity holders, which is basically the sponsors, are providing 20% of the project cost. The next one is that project finance is non-recourse financing. And what does that mean? That means that the equity investors are only liable to the contribution they have made for that project cost, which means that if by peradventure the project defaults and the SPV cannot pay back the loan, the lenders cannot go after the investors because the investors' liability is limited to the 20% stake they have in that particular project. That means they can only lose 20% of the funding they have already contributed to that particular project. The next one is risk allocation. Project finance involves allocation of risks. What that means is that risk is allocated to the party that is well able to handle and manage that risk. For example, let's assume that the project we are embarking on is an airport. We need to construct the airport. For the construction of the airport, we need to allocate that risk to the EPC contractor. EPC stands for engineering, procurement, and construction. Now, for the EPC contractor, you are supposed to have a watertight agreement with the EPC contractor, which means that if you are agreeing with the EPC contractor that you are paying him a fixed amount for the project, don't forget that the project you are giving to the EPC contractor is a turnkey project. That means you are giving him all the whole project to construct. The EPC contractor have the responsibility to delegate those projects to individual contractors. It's not your concern. Your own concern is that the EPC contractor will deliver that project as at the right time. If the EPC contractor fails to deliver that project as at the specific date agreed upon, the EPC contractor will pay something called liquidated damages, which is also known as penalty. If you think about the operation and the maintenance of the project, you have to allocate that risk to an O&M contractor. An O&M contractor stands for operation and maintenance, which is someone that is well able to operate and maintain that particular airport in a standard way, which means that he must have the experience of doing so. If, for example, you are embarking in a power plant project, you also need the gas supplier, which will supply gas to that particular project. The day he fails to supply gas, then he's going to pay liquidated damages as well. That means you can see you have different contracts with different people. The SPV also has contract with the shareholders, also have contract with the lenders as well. So what that means that it's more of a collection of contracts. So the contract for each of these parties must be watertight and it must be very solid. The next feature is that project finance is mostly long-term financing. Unlike corporate finance, you have loans of 5 years, 6 years, 2 years. For project finance, the loans are basically long-term. They are called term loans, right? So you can have a loan of up to 25 years, you can have a loan of up to 20 years. most times the loans are matched to the project life. Next feature is that project finance involves cash flow financing. You can't source for repayment from any other place. You can only pay back the loan based on the cash flow generated from that project, which tells you the importance of cash flow when it comes to project finance. And your cash flow has to be close to reality. That is the reason why you need to have fixed contract with the O&M contractors, fixed contract with the EPC contractors, and other parties that are involved, so that the cash flow in your financial model can be close to reality, which can be used to service your debt and as well pay for operational expense. So these are basically the features of project finance. And you can say this is quite different from corporate finance. And I believe that with this, you have been able to understand project finance in more detail. If you have enjoyed this video, please try and subscribe. Thank you.